Yo, what up, YouTube? What up, what up, what up? Here, I got cut off on the last video. I apologize for that. I'm going to continue on just a little bit and talk about, you know what I'm saying, different movements and stuff like that. And I just implore those that are looking at this video and any certain type of light that if they get, you know what I'm saying, like emotional, then something is wrong with the way that you heard something. All right. I ain't here to get on any different types of groups. I ain't no judge. I ain't no preacher either. I'm just explaining the machinations of how I seen things, turn out or spill out, and spiritual things. And one of the things I was pointing out at the end was with the Black Lives Matter movement, the so-called black, which is a color. Um, you know what I'm saying? That is a movement, pertaining to like lost sheep. And when we go further into this, when the LGBTQ group joined the Black Lives Matter group, and also I figured out the name that other group. I think it's called Antifa, where they wear all black and what have you. And in several videos on YouTube, you were seeing some of these guys go out. I think one dude stabbed a guy, and it was like a fellow protester. You know what I'm saying? And we had all of this wildness going on while people were trying to do a peaceful protest. Some people caught like a police truck on camera where they laid out bricks and what have you. You know what I'm saying? When we talk about networks and organizations, that could be a 33 right there. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's saying to throw the bricks, but they weren't doing construction in those areas and materials were lined out. So when we speak about, you know what I'm saying, the devil and how the devil likes to infiltrate, you know what I'm saying? That was a group that I felt was infiltrated. And how that turmoil turned out was the fact that I'm all about people staying together and what have you, because a lot of the things that we deal with are common. What I do have an issue with though is if there's a group, you know what I'm saying, anything that seems like it starts out, you know what I'm saying, that is just like for black people, for one thing, people getting a tizzy over it. Well, why? Why? Everybody else has all these organizations and groups and fraternities and sororities and all of that. But the minute that black people have something, people get in a tizzy. There are things that black people cannot be a part of, right? But it becomes an issue or concern or jealousy, malicious when black people have something. And that was something, with the BLM that there was cause for. So, you know what I'm saying? When you get the LGBTQ, you know what I'm saying, movement joined in that, it's all good if if we're fighting for the principle of what that group stood for. But BLM eventually turned into predominantly being, taken over by this LGBTQ thing once they got Antifa out of the way, because they were pinning those, malicious attacks during those peaceful protests on BLM. So if it's negative, you pin it on the black people that came there peacefully. You see what I'm saying? And once people use their voice, because that's what I'm saying to you guys have a voice. They could do what they want at the top, but if people do not go along with it, you know what I'm saying? They're basically powerless, you know? So it's a situation of fear. Are people afraid or are people just asleep? These are things that, I question, you know what I'm saying? And I ask that to anyone out there watching this video. And so now, BLM, nobody's talking about BLM anymore. It's back to all LGBTQ. And my question is, with that community, are they also, still, promoting or putting out there anything that has to do with Black Lives Matter or any certain type of thing pertaining to the plight and the oppression of so-called black people? No. So was that infiltration? Was it meant to be that way? You know what I'm saying? Was there a motive behind that in the higher state of things. I'm not talking about the people that actually merged and took stand. I'm talking about, was it a machination of infiltration from a higher point? It would seem so, okay? It would appear so, okay? And that's what I mean about these movements and principles. And to go further, is this thing, you guys. It's this. Movements, whether someone is a feminist, whether someone is an LGBTQ, whether somebody is Antifa or whatever, right? At the end of the day, you guys, when you have to form a movement in order to do something, something is wrong, right? Because the truth is not a movement. You either stand for it or you don't. And if you don't stand for the truth, you know what I'm saying? Or you have to make a group, right? Let's say you make a group. The group is only concerned with that community's interests, their own interests. So the group has selfish interests. And people say, well, that's not true. Is it? If an injustice happens, to a police officer, are the people in BLM going to stand up for it? Are the people in the LGBTQ movement going to stand up for it? Is Antifa going to stand up for it? Well, why not? Why not? Why wouldn't they? Did something happen to an individual? Well, yes, it did. But it doesn't matter because that individual is a police. So police got to fend for their own. And because with any group, there are bad apples, right? Now we just shun the whole group. We're in cancel culture. And that's very childish, man. It really is. Nobody's forgiving anymore. There is no forgiveness. It's a cold world out there. And the problem with movements that have selfish interests, right? Maybe they're not consciously aware of it, but subconsciously or whatever, when you start to get in this, the real fact of the matter is that injustices happen. And an injustice is an injustice, whether it's done to the LGBTQ, whether it's done to the Black Lives Matter, whether it's done to a person in Antifa, whether it's done to a police officer, whether it's done to a white supremacist, whether it's done to a black supremacist, whether it's done to a Muslim. Wrong is wrong. But nobody wants to talk about that. And these are the subtle things that we want to make considerations for certain things, but not for other things, right? So people could say what they want with me, but just don't tell me that you're conscious and you're not still, and nobody's giving a damn for the plight of the oppression that's happening on the people. Well, now we're crabs in the barrel because we're all in the same boat. Don't matter if you're black or you're white or this or that. And the principles of the motives behind the medicine being pushed today is deeper than what's just coming out. It's deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? This has nothing to do with pro-vaccine or against vaccine. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the principles of how it's being enforced upon people. It's not about the medicine. It is about the fact that free will comes from God. That means for those who don't believe in God, God allows you that free will. Why? Because he's omnipresent. Your opinion doesn't matter. He's still going to be him, right? That's just the truth. You're free to have that opinion. For those who want to do LGBTQ, you're free to do that. For those who want to be Antifa, you're free to do that. For those who want to be free to be a white supremacist, a black supremacist, a Muslim, you go ahead and do that. That is what you're doing with the free will that God gave you, right? That's just the truth. I ain't here to preach to you, but I'm saying we're all in the same boat in terms of what is happening to your free will, what is happening to your freedom of speech, what is happening to your patriotism, right? And yet we consider ourselves the same country, but we're not lying on the same principles that we were founded under. For those of people who are white supremacists and things like that, keep one thing in mind. A lot of this country was built on the backs of slaves that never got a hot red dime. You don't got to go to war to be a patriot. Now, I'm not a patriot. I don't subscribe to any different group. I'm just a dude passing through this world, man. These thorns and thistles, they really don't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? My mind is other places. But I'm just saying, an injustice is an injustice. You know, they got policies and legislation, these things that trickle down and affect every single individual. Well, a lot of people just go with the flow. They're not speaking on anything. A lot of people only care if it happens to their particular group or community that they subscribe to. Who cares about the homeless? HLM, homeless lives matter. Who gives a damn, right? How many people are talking about that? When have you heard something about that? But instead, people act like they don't exist, like they're not there, right? So this is a cold world where people generally, you know, they're caught in a bubble and they're naive or they can't place themselves in other people's shoes. Our facade of niceness towards one another, in many cases, workplaces or any other place, is fake. It's like a layer of plastic that you have to get through to get a real conversation. Everything's just a script, like when you pull up to a fast food window. Would you like fries with that? Right? You ask somebody how they're doing, they say that they're doing fine, but they got tears in their eyes. And you accept it and carry on about your business. Because the truth of the matter is, nobody cares. Right? And that's just the truth of the situations. When you get into movements, you're not dealing with the injustices anymore. You're dealing with the particulars of an injustice. And therefore, that's an injustice in itself. God is no respecter of persons, white, black, Dominican, LGBTQ, this, that, or the other. Concerning the Bible, the Bible teaches individuals the way. Now, if you choose to go a different way, that's on you. God gave you the free will to do that. But in these policies and legislatures that people just subscribe to, you just roll over and take or whatever, then those apertures of your free will, you're giving away. You're giving it away. Now, you know, when you have a world that is fearful, then they're not thinking critically. People take the medicine but still have to wear a mask, like pathogen particulates can't get through the fibers of the cloth in your mask. That's insane. You're not keeping yourself from any danger there. It's a facade, it's a fake wall to make people feel secure, to make people feel like they're in control, to stop hysteria. What happens when you have a world that stops dealing with the truth? It's a real war, is confusion and lies. And the confusion and lies become common. And in those confusion and lies, it creates division. And in those divisions, it creates movements. And in those movements, you have enmity. Wow. Now we're really conscious. We had to go like 33 degrees just for something that should be rudimentary, something that children pick up natively. And we call ourselves adults like we've really gone somewhere, like we've really done something, like we really achieved some type of knowledge. But in our knowledge, we operate less morally than the children. That's intricate, kind of prideful, and then pride is kind of subtle. These are those things, you guys, that people need to be more aware of. You know what I'm saying? People are trapped in a bubble. You know what I'm saying? People are feeling powerless. The war is not on terror. The terror has become truth. To say something and people are easily offended, not because you said something wrong, but because they are sensitive. Conversations that are never had that creates a big bubble where animosity is between people for no reason. People can't have a conversation or are not adulting enough to have that conversation to talk out that enmity. People hate other people for other reasons that they don't understand, but we don't think we're under mind control. This world is on the Kool-Aid, man. But everybody forgot their Kool-Aid points. Nobody's getting anything out of it. I'm just being honest, man. I'm just telling so these are the types of things that, I talk about. Everybody is gung ho for justice, forgetting that they need forgiveness first. The greatest injustice can be handled by absolving confusion and lies. Everybody cutting other people's throats into this gossip and slander. None of it matters. It's like trash, it just blows away. It won't matter tomorrow. The mind is fleeting from one event to the next thing. Got a boxing event today, the football game's on here, this, that, and the other. And as long as you get these little events, you're like Dora the fish. Forever a fleeting mind, never any resolve, just moments of anxiety, moments of quietness, moments of uncertainty. And he just continues on. And I ask, hey man, how you doing? And I really care. And you say, I'm fine. That facade, that bubble. That's just the truth. So I say these things with love, man. I really do. You know what I'm saying? And even unto my enemies, I love them as well. But we are all trapped under the same thing. Whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. Look at that. Look at that division. And the people working these plans are not caught up in the middle. They don't have to box with anybody. But the victims eat each other. That's the point. So peace and blessings be with you all. I'm out. This is about Movements Part 2.